just released commenting features. There's a long way to go.
All right, then, to begin with, I'd like all of you, please, let me put the URL in bigger letters, and then I'll go out to it myself in just a second. I'd like you to go out here. Is that big enough? Can you read that, Christopher? Okay.
All right, so there are people who are titled themselves software. What I would do then, the DM click on Allie's.
And of course, you don't need this. It should take it with just omdbapi.com. All right?
Yeah.
So here's what Allie's interested.
OM is Open Movie, DB is database, and is the API. Okay? Now, it has changed a little bit over time. What do I mean? Well, let me just go out there. This, it says here, the poster API is only available to patrons. That's Patreons. That's not true anymore. All right. But what I'd like all of you to do, because I don't think I have an account on here either. I thought I'm going to just start with you guys. Is I'd like you to go over and up. Right here it says API key. Can everybody see that? It's the last menu option before the button over here. So click API key. Now, no, you don't want to be a Patreon. You want the free one. Put in your email. I'd recommend using your Rankin email. You do what you want to do. Put in your first name and your last name. And for a use, don't leave it blank, but we're just going to put in class project using React. And if you don't like that, then come up with something similar to that. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. And if it is that, fine. All right, questions? Everybody's got that? All right, then just click submit.
Nobody can really. What I am learning is very few people say why they did why they did. Right? There's
a second time. A key has already been assigned to that email address. Well, then I did have one already. Okay. You know what? I'm going to just put in my other email address, which is the same thing, but it's at charter.net. So I'm going to try that one, and hopefully I don't have that. It says a verification link was sent to that email. All right.
Very good. Thank you. Very good. Thank you. A question here from
all right, and it says, here is your key.
Good question.
Okay. Now, I'm going to just keep mine out there. All right. I found a couple of things online that I was looking at, and in both cases, the people who were presenting said, get your own key because the one you see here won't work. But just for the hell of it, I tried their key and it worked, which means they didn't deactivate it. But sometimes with these things, if there's been no action on it for X amount of time, it could be 6 months, it could be a year, it could be whatever, they will deactivate the key. Doesn't mean that it's gone. It just means that the next time you log in, they might send you a different code or a different something. All right? All right. I would recommend that at least for now you open up and just put your key into a place, where you can grab it. All right? And I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to take for granted that if people have questions that you're going to ask. All right? Okay. All right, then I want to go back just to the main page here.
Why did they fire somebody?
So can I just click my back button too? Let's do that.
Does the client have the budget?
Come on.
This is a really important question. The hiring manager.
There. Okay. And when you look over here, it's a little bit confusing, but not really. All right? So, for instance, if I came through here, let's say I didn't put an API key in at all, or I put in one that this isn't real. I think you don't agree with that. It's not a real key. So if I come in there and I paste that in and I hit enter, I do get back information. Unfortunately, it says that was false because the key that I put in was invalid. That should make sense to everybody. All right? Now, if I go back and I grab where my key was here, and I put in the same query, which is basically what I'm doing here, but where it says API key equal, I'm going to get rid of everything after the equal sign and just paste in my key. All right? And hit enter.
But I also think too, I think it agrees.
Hit again.
have at least 50%
of the skill sets listed, go ahead and submit your information.
Okay? And you say, well, it still says invalid API key. I'm not sure why, but the point is, what you are going to be able to do by the end of the period, if not today, then early tomorrow, is you're going to be able to put that in, and you're going to put more in here than this because you have to search for something. So you're going to search for, we can put in Harry Potter, and it'll come back and show you all the Harry Potter movies. Does that make sense? All right. Okay. So I'm going to try this one more time just to see. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say this, the whole thing that's in here. But after this, I'm going to put before the API key, after the question mark, I'm going to put S equals, and you can put in whatever you want here. I'll put in Spider-Man. All right. And then ampersand API key. So let's see if this works, and I'll put it up there if you do want it. Yeah, it should just be S equals. So what don't you like here? I did it before, it worked fine. OMDB. Question mark S equals Spider-Man, and API key equal your key. Well, that is actually correct. All right, hopefully this isn't a sign of things to come, that everything will be all right in just a bit. All right, we'll see. All right, but they give some examples in here of how this is to be used. All right, and basically what we want to do, and this is the first time we're doing this in React, we're going to have two different pages. We're going to have a home page that comes up, and it'll be unbelievably, unremarkably simplistic. All right, and it'll allow us to choose to go and look for movies. Then, on that page, once we go and get it working, we're going to have a button for each movie that says, like, movie details. And you press it, and it'll give you the details on just that movie. Does that make sense? All right. So, that's what we're going to have, and it'll mean that we're going to have to do a few things, and that's why I sent you those emails, etc. So they show the parameters in here. They show you different things that you can do in here, etc. Now, notice in here, I'm going to try this one. Yeah, we'll see if it works, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'm going to come in here and just grab this one they've got in here for Batman. All right, and now this one should not work because there is no key. So I went down to this change log, about 5 or 6 down. Okay? And I'm coming in here, and I'm going to paste that in. I do not believe this will work because there's no key provided. Okay, that's fine. But I'm going to put in here now, ampersand API key equals, all right, and now I'm going to try it again with my key. It's like that. All right, now it says invalid key. I don't know why. Maybe it just didn't like the fact, let's see. Please append this to all of your requests. All right, just like that. That's what it says. Whoops. But it says on here that I should be able to do this. So I'm going to just grab this, that URL right there, and I'm going to put it in. And it doesn't like my key. It's telling me that my key's invalid. Maybe yours worked, maybe it didn't. Even if it didn't, we'll get this built. I'm not really worried about it. I see that Angie's worked. All right, and that's good. Did yours work? Did yours work? I'd rather have mine never work and have yours work. Okay? You had to put in the HTTP at the front. Maybe that's it. HTTP. Oops. No, it shouldn't. Okay. Well, still doesn't like that for mine. I tried putting it in there, so. Well, I did click on the link. No, this is the other one, because I don't know what my first one is. So let's go back to here. Let's make sure. Maybe it thinks I didn't activate the link yet. Click the following to activate. No, I didn't. There you go. But when you do that, of course, you can't click that entire thing because of the way they've got it set up. So it says click the following link.
resume that you provided.
So it's up to right here.
Dropped the link in the chat. What stands out to me about this is how clean it is. Can you just talk us through? Can you just talk what it is about this CV? What it is about this CV?
Your key is now activated. Thank goodness. All right. So now when I come up here and I refresh, okay, and it may need to go in all over again. It is cache, the one that doesn't work, so. Again, I did try to put in the HTTP. It's got an S, which I don't think it needs. It really shouldn't have in there. S equal Batman. I'll just get rid of that page equal 2. And the key equals. That actually should be correct. There we go. Okay. Now I'm like you, sort of. But I got the information. Okay? And this is the information they've got about Batman. So if I changed it to Spider-Man, etc., you all get that. All right. So let's just continue on. All right. Okay. So let's do what we have been doing, and that is I want you to right mouse click on your desktop, and let's create a new folder. And we will just call this movies -API-React. Again, if you don't like that, you can call it something else. It really doesn't matter. All right. So I've got that. All right. And I'm going to open up a Git Bash window in here.
Interesting, because that's not.
I'm not running anything yet. I will in a minute. In fact, I can run it now. So let's do our npx create react app. And you know again that this will take a little while. It'll take a little bit more time for some of you than others.
Because it was memorable because it was amazing. One that was memorable because it was really awful because it was really awful. We can learn from both. We can learn from both.
I don't have as much to share this idea. I will tell you this. More times than not, there are bad people.
Oh wow.
I will tell you this. If you invest money in any part of your job, it's resume writing, and a headshot. Because your resume gets you the door, your link in your headshot makes you professional. And there's a lot.
Just like we've done previously, we will be installing a few things as we go on the way, and I'm not going to install anything at the start. As we need something, we'll install it. All right?
Wow. Bear that in mind, everyone. A headshot. That is shot. Just be on LinkedIn. Just be on LinkedIn.
Twitter. We live in a sea of profiles, right?
We're going to do virtually zero styling on this, just so you know. Virtually zero styling. All right? And kind of at least what that means is part of your assignment is going to be to style it. It's going to look okay, but just kind of all thrown all over the place, for lack of better words.
Here's what I would do. Because the world is more global now than it ever has, I would still focus on finding area that know your city, or know the area of town, you live in, have on your local market. I would do packs that I kind of came up with was
We have created a new project called movies-API-React, and we have all gone out to the OMDB, Open Movie Database API.com, and signed up for a free account, which gives you an API key, which now I can tell you must be activated before you start. So we're going to wait for a couple minutes. In fact, I'm going to pause this.
That is a great tip. And make sure it's not Tequila King 92.
So we also went in, just so you know, Gabriel, because this is going to take you a second, and we went in and created a new React project. So we went in and we did the npx create. First we went in and we created a new folder. We called the folder Movies API React, so you can do that on your desktop. And then after you do that, that's when you come in, as always, and do your npx create react app dot. So you can do that. I take it yours are all up now, right? No? Okay. Well, see, yours might come up before hers anyway. All right, you never know.
If it's applicable to the type of full stack developer, have good front end skills, I'd have back end skills, I'd have a back end resume and a back end. But yeah,
And if you look up on the screen, even if yours hasn't come up yet, you don't have to do this, but I'm going to open, first of all, I am going to open this thing up, and I'm going to open it up in code. Okay? And then, like I do, and again, you don't have to do this, but we are going to change this up a little bit. So I'm first going to go into public and into my index file, and I'm going to remove those comments. If you could care less, then leave them in. Doesn't really matter. I just think they're kind of a waste, so I am removing them.
and I actually have an breakdown how to day.
All right, which also shrinks down the size of this file. I'm going to change the name to React Movie App. Again, if you don't like that, just call it whatever you want. It should be something that's at least fairly appropriate to what we're doing. All right, so did that, clean up all the rest, and that's fine. So I'm going to do a file save, and I shouldn't even need to open this one up again, I don't think. We'll see. All right, then I'm going to go in and close my public folder and open up my source folder. You know the drill here. We've done this before. All right, I'm going to remove my logo.svg file. I'm going to remove the report web vitals file. I'm going to remove the setup test file. It's just the same ones that we have been removing, that's all. All right, plus we're going to do something we haven't done before. We're not going to use app.js. We're going to make our own. So I'm going to remove app.js, and I'm going to remove app.test.js, and I'm going to remove app.css. So you can see how I've really slimmed this down now. All right, we are going to go in and create our own components. So in the source folder, I'm going to create a folder, and here's a surprise. I'm going to call it components. All right, so in source, I'm going to right mouse click, do a new folder, call it components, all lowercase. All right, then in that components, we're going to actually end up having 2 pages. For right now, we only care about one of them. Okay, this is going to be our home page, and it's going to allow us to list the movies. So I'm going to call it list movies.js.
Perfect.
All right.
Enrique asks, how to calm yourself.
Any questions on anything we've done so far? Anything that doesn't make sense? All right. So as we come up in here, all right, we're going to do a couple different things. All right. First, we're going to come in. We're going to say import React from React. Nothing new there. We've done that virtually in everything we've been working with. All right. This is going to be a functional component. All right. So I said function and the name list movies. All right. And we're not going to put in much for now, but let's just put in here return. And for now, well, that should be, those should be parens. I thought I hit a paren. I hit a curly brace. We get rid of that. All right. So paren. And for now, we'll just put an H1. You can put your name in there. Don't put my name in there. Just that. That's totally fine. All right. So something like that. Now, right now, our index.js file doesn't even know that page exists. Right? It doesn't. So we're going to have to let it know it exists. So first, let's go in and get rid of the stuff. Open up index.js, and let's get rid of stuff we don't need. We don't need lines 4 and 5. We removed our app already, and we removed the report web vitals. We don't need those anymore. All right, and we also don't need his web vital stuff down at the bottom. All right?
Okay.
Okay, so what do we need? Well, we need to come in here and we need to say import, and we call this list movies. All right, and now remember we've got to say, whoops, / components / list movies. And I'm asking because I don't know. So let's see what does it make here. Import list. Oh, I didn't say the word from. From. There we go. Is there anything that's in there that doesn't make sense to people? All right. Now, I want you to see this. I've always removed this before. And I'm not going to lie to you. Why did I remove it? I wasn't even sure what it meant. So what I did was I just grabbed that, put it in here, and typed in React strict mode. And of course it pushed me off to the reactjs.org page. And it says it's a tool for highlighting potential problems in an application. All right, it does not render any visible UI. It activates additional checks and warnings. I thought, you know what, that's probably a good thing. So I'm going to leave it in there. All right.
And then doing that
If for some reason it really bugged you, you wouldn't have to leave it in there. All right. And the only other thing we should have to do for right now is I want to double click on the word list movies, and I want to replace the word app with the word list movies.
I feel bad socializing.
Does everything we've done so far make sense?
All
right, I'm going to do a file save.
So I think it's
And kind of the moment of truth, so to speak, so I'm going to come in here. I don't have to do this because I already did. And I'm going to do my NPM start. We'll see if I get any errors. And it doesn't like something. Attempted import error. Components list movies does not generate. Oh, okay, good. Because I'm making errors that most people make. Does anybody know what the error is? It's in this file. Do you know what the error is? You are correct. We need to say default export list movies, which I did not do. Is it default export or export default? I don't even remember now. Export default. Export default. So, put export back here. And let me get rid of this one. There we go. And semicolon. All right. Now, if it comes up here and it says compiled successfully, that's always a good sign. All right. And if I come back here, it says element type is invalid. Let's see. There we go. Jeff Scott movie. Again, this is not going to be formatted at all. All right. So it's all going to be way over on the left. We could go into the CSS. I want this to become yours. That's why I'm going to show you some stuff when we end up going out to the API and printing. But I'm going to show you very little. Because I want you to print what you want to print. All right? When we get to the detail for a movie page, there's probably about 15 things you can print. All right? And maybe, for example, to Angie, the gross, how much money the movie pulled in was important. And maybe Gabriel could care less. All right, but maybe Gabriel cares when did the movie come out to DVD, and maybe Angie doesn't care less. So you'll be able to put in there whatever you'd like to put in. Does all that make sense? All right. So since we used list movies now as our home page, we don't need app.js, and we removed it. We also removed anything related to apps. So app.js, app.test.js, app.css. I just want you to realize there's nothing magical about app. It's just one, most people do leave it in there, but just to show you that you didn't have to do that. All right. Well, let's put in a little bit more stuff, so to speak. Okay. So let's see. Again, in list movies. So I'll leave this up and running because we're not installing anything yet. But let's come back in here and let's put in a little bit of stuff. All right, we've got this in here right now. That's not bad. All right, but you want to keep that H1? Keep that H1. That's fine, I'll keep it. But let's come in here and let's put in a label. And remember, if we have a label, we can have 4 equals. And I'm going to just call it title because we're about to put in the title. All right, and I'm going to put in here movie title. Not sure why it's giving me that, but it is. Let's look. Oh, it's all got to be in a div, right?
If this position doesn't work out, how can I say
No. No.
because if you really like
That.
you want to keep that.
Okay.
You want to keep that.
So we're building the equivalent of a really bad form right here. So I'm going to put here input
But I have like a,
type equal text.
and so like if you were to work with me now,
All right.
yeah.
And eventually, we're going to put a change method in here, just so you know. We will eventually have a change method in here. I'm not going to put it in right now, so I'm just going to end it like this.
I would ask, hey, Mr.
All right? And underneath that, we're going to have a button, and that's going to have a change method, or an on-click, change, in just a few minutes. But for now, I'm not going to put that in either. And I'm just going to say search. Okay? Now, hopefully, I didn't break anything. I didn't. It's going to, again, probably not look nice, but there it is. So, movie title and search. Again, I want this to become your home page. So you want to play with color, you want to play with styling, you want to go in and grab a bootstrap form and do that, go ahead and do it. All right? I'm purposely making this very simplistic, is what I'm telling you. All right, so again, that was it. Any questions on that? Okay. All right. So, a couple things that, again, like I said, we're going to do. All right? And one of them is we want to make sure that for this input type that's right here, that as we start typing something in, so if I type in Spider-Man, that it's going to recognize Spider-Man. Does that make sense? All right. So, where we've got the type equal text, I'm going to hit enter twice, and I'm going to add an on-change event in here. All right. You can call it whatever you want, but this is what I called it. So I said on-change equal, and in here I called it handle change movie search. Kind of a long name, I understand that. But I try to take the stuff that I'm doing and make it indicative of what is being done here. Okay, hopefully that all makes sense. All right, so let's go back up to the top of this file. We're going to be using state. And in order for us to be able to be using state, you already know this, after the import react, I'm going to put a comma here, and then in curly braces, I'm going to put in use state. Just like that. All right. Now, many books will tell you that anything that starts with the word use like that, and there's some other stuff too. There's some other use things that we haven't talked about yet, and there's some other ones, but when you put it in curlies like that, they're typically referred to as react hooks. Just so you know, you hear that term a lot. All right. And one of the things that, again, that is differentiating using FBC's functional-based components versus CBC's class-based components is you've got hooks in functional-based components. All right? Okay.
The mentality of the job.
So, right up above the return statement in here, we just made this new thing, right here, handle change movie search. And notice I spelled search wrong, not on purpose, but now it's correct. I didn't want to say handle change movie search. No.
Yeah.
So I made it search now. Okay. I'm going to copy that, and right up above the return statement, I'm going to write that function. All right? So, I'm going to put in const, and that's going to be the function in just a second when I get done. And it's going to be equal to, we're going to make an arrow function that needs an event, so it's going to look like that.
In my view, ludicrous.
Like this.
So my
All right. And then inside of there, we'll literally only have one line of code. All right. It's going to be called set movie search term. And we're going to pass in there e.target .value. Just like that. That's the whole thing. Probably wouldn't care. I don't know if it'd mind if I put a semicolon there or not. It's so hinky with where it takes semicolons and where it doesn't that I'm typically not putting them in there except at the beginning or maybe the end of the file. Now, a couple things. First of all, this, I want you to understand. What's in blue right there? That Don't worry, that we can fix that in a minute. I would expect it to say that it failed to compile. But if you remember up here, I had the text box. That's that. It's what I'm putting in the text box. It's given me this because it says you don't have that yet because we didn't write that yet. All right, we're gonna write it right now. Okay. Now, when we use state, you may or may not remember this. So I'm going to put it right up above this. So right here, I'm going to come in and put in 2 lines of code. Okay. And the first one is going to say const, and this will be for my movie search term. And remember, that's the term that we're using, and then you say set followed by that name. So I'm going to say here set movie search term, like that. And right now, when we first start out, I think you'd all agree with this, there's nothing in there. So I'm going to say here, let me close that, equal use state, and we're just going to set it equal to the empty string. There's nothing in there right now.
Yeah.
All right, that will be the term that we are searching for, is what I'm telling you. So you'll notice that now this was never grade because we'd already written here. This is grade because we're not using it any place in our program yet. We are going to go in and use it in just a few minutes. All right, we're going to put one more up here. We're not here yet, but I'm going to do it like this anyway. I'm going to just do it right now. Okay, and that is we're going to have one more const here. And we're going to put here movies, comma, set movies.
So one of the things I would do is I would ask.
All right. Equal use state, and that's going to be what we get returned from, like you saw before when we had this. That's this. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, hopefully you already get this. But what is this? It's an object. You know, because it starts with that. But it's an array of these objects. Does that make sense? All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to initialize it to just an empty object, because it's going to be filled in as the program is running. All right? Now, my guess is, and I could be wrong, but I'm going to go back and look at this.
It is. I agree. It is. I agree.
If I go back here and look, oh, it did come back. Okay. So again, this is going to be that e.target.value is whatever I'm putting in here. There's 2 things we have to react to in here. And that is putting in something like Harry Potter here, and also clicking right there. Those are the 2 things that we have to handle in the program. All right. Now, I want to show you a tool that I'd like you to go and download, because I think that it'll help you with what we're doing. You can actually minimize yours and download this if you want. It won't hurt anything. All right? But, so you can see what it is. All right? I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to just Google. All right? I'm going to put in here Chrome, React, Dev Tools, Developer Tools. And you'll notice this is what comes up. If you don't want to do all that, just go out to this. All right, and I'll give you the URL right now. You can go out to the Chrome Web Store, but just Google React Developer Tools. Now, I've already got it installed. You probably don't. All right? So your button won't look like mine. It'll ask you if you want to install it. So if I clicked remove from Chrome here and I said to remove it, it would now probably look like yours, because I want to add it back in now. All right, so add to Chrome, and it says, do you want to add this? And click add extension, and it's there. Now, what I want you to understand, what that is going to do is when I run my program now, I just want you to see what it actually does. And I right mouse click on here and I go to inspect. There is something here that wasn't here before. If I go over to network and I click that double arrow, these are what's new. Components and profiler. They weren't there before. So if I click on components, it may not show anything now, and that's okay. But it's something that you can eventually use as a debugging tool. All right?
Yeah.
And if you say, well, what if I don't want to download that? Do I have to? No.
What if someone isn't
All right? And you might not even use it, but it's theirs. All right? Just in the same way, and I sent this thing out to you guys before, I mentioned this to the class, you may or may not have seen it, but today, one of the things that I sent you, amongst other things, all right, so one of the things that I sent you was this thing with these URLs. And if I go out here and I click on this last one, these are 25 Visual Code extensions. Well, most of them are not for React, but if I go down, this is a thing that you might want to go into VS Code and put in. So all you should have to put is ES7 React and it'll find it. All right? And it allows you, it gives you code snippets. All right? Who cares? Well, it can make you so you don't have to code as much. That's all. And if you say, I don't care, then don't do it. All right? But if I go to right here, I don't think I've got it installed. I had it and I think I removed it. But we'll find out. So if I go back here, and again, I may have it on here. I don't know if I removed it or didn't remove it. And I go to extensions, and I type in here just ES7 React. I did uninstall. That's it. And I click install. It's installing. Boom. It's installed. And they show what's here. And there are shortcuts that you can use. I'm not going to go over those right now. All right. You can Google that and find out more if you want to. If you don't care, then just don't install it. It really and truly isn't going to matter very much one way or the other. All right. Now, what we want to do after the user enters a movie into that search box and clicks the search button, we wanted to make a call out to the omdbapi.com site and look for any possible match or matches. Does that make sense? I mean, that's the whole idea behind this program. All right? So, there's different ways, as you know, that we could do this, but what we will do, because it's the one that's predominantly used today, is we are going to go and install Axios again. So, before I do that, I'm going to stop the program run. All right, so I'm going to stop my program run here. Try to. Control C, there we go. Clear. I'm not going to go to the Axios homepage. We've looked at that enough, I think. But I'm going to do an npm I Axios right there. Hit enter. As always, it should just take a second or so to come up. All right. And you already know this. In order to use that, I'm going to have to come back up to my list movies and type in import Axios from Axios. All right. So it's now available in the program. All right. In fact, that should be a little bit. When you put in npm components, you put them in this lowercase. All right.
When would be the time?
Now, I looked here, and it looked like it was telling me that I had something wrong. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, clear this, and run it again and see if I've got any errors. So npm start.
Yeah. So there we go. That's what. There we go.
And I wanted to check. I mean, it is coming up, but I wanted to check and see if there was something it didn't like. It says Axios is defined but never used. Yep. Movie search term is assigned a value but never used. Yep. Movies is assigned a value but never used. Yep. Set movies is assigned a value that's never used. So it's not giving me any errors, but it's giving me 4 warnings. Make sense? All right. So I'm going to just leave that up and running. All right. Again, you know this. You don't have to do it, but we can always go back into package.json and check, and there you see Axios is right there. Okay. All right. Yours is up now? No? Okay. Now, on the bottom of our page here, we've got this button. You already saw that. But right now the button isn't doing a flaming thing because we haven't told it to do anything. It's time to change that right now. So where we've got this button right here that says search, Where it's got button right there, I'm going to hit enter right there. You'll see why in a minute. In fact, I'm going to hit enter twice, and I'm going to start putting in some stuff. What stuff? On click, equal, and then in curly braces, handle, whoops, handle,
Yep. And there's always the old
click,
and there's always the old willing to
movie,
relocate. Is that actually a good thing to put? Is that actually a
search.
good thing to put?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you're
Okay? Now, when we call this, we're going to want to pass it in whatever value we put into that text box. All right? Which is really our search term. Does that make sense to everybody? So I can go and pass that. So I can say here, search term. That's, again, I think you already all know this, but this and this, I need those. All right? You don't have to call it. Notice I've got handle change movie search, handle click movie search. Some people could say, well, those names are too similar, that's confusing. Then don't call them that. All right? Usually the standard is it's handle, but I'm showing what I'm handling. Literally, these are the only two handlers we've got in here. So I could have just called them handle click and handle change, and it would have been just fine. I didn't do that, but again, we could have done that, is what I'm telling you. All right. So, problem is, we don't have this one written. So let's write that one right now. All right? So let's write that one, and then we'll run the program and see if it works so far. All right, and after we do that, we're going to take a break. So I'm just copying all that to the clipboard, everything in blue there, and right underneath my other one, which says, const handle movie search, I'm going to put in this one, just like that. All right, again, I'm going to make it a const, just like we just did. All right.
Making it nearly impossible for a computer to understand.
Just keep waving.
And you already know this. There's nothing wrong with calling that search term, right? Remember, down here, this is the actual parameter. Up here, this is a formal parameter. We can call it the same thing. We don't have to call it the same thing. All right? And you know what? I don't want to call it the same thing. So I'm just going to call this movie. I'm going to call it what it is. In other words. All right? So we've got that. And I'm going to set that equal to. So movie search. All right. In fact, remember, we're going to make it an arrow function, so that'll be equal, and there's the parameter. All right. And we need a curly. Okay. And it's not very long. So, const. We're going to put our URL in here. Movie URL equal. Now, there's an easy way to do this. There's a harder way to do this. Okay? You've already seen this right here. Okay? And if you remember, one of the reasons, at least we thought, that I was having problems with it earlier is I didn't have http://www.this. Okay? But for what we're about to do, you do need to give it that entire path. It's going out to the internet. So it needs to know that this is an HTTP, because remember, it could be an HTTP, it could be an HTTPS, it could be an FTP. All right? Well, it's an HTTP. So I'm going to grab this. Hopefully you still have that, or else you can just type it in. It's not going to hurt anything. But what we'll want to do is put this into backticks. All right? So right here, so I'm going to put in that. We're not done yet. All right? So I've got all that. Okay? And then I want to say question mark S equals our movie. Okay? That's still not enough, because if you remember, it also needs key, right? All right. And API key equal, and you, oops, sorry, API key equal, and we want to put our key there. Now, there's two ways that you can do this. We could go and, again, go in and make a proc file, etc., and put that key in there so people wouldn't be able to see it. I'm just going to go and put mine in. I'm not really that worried about it. If you didn't read this when we first started,
As computers have become faster,
With the freebie that we're using, you get up to 1,000 times you can access this a day. I don't think that's going to be an issue. I mean, I think if you sat and played with it for a while and you did more than 100 or two, you'd probably be surprised.
input value
All right.
and then return it.
Okay, a couple more lines, and then we're going to take a break. Now, that's all fine.
But another optional
Okay?
combination is based
So we've got everything in there we need. All right, that's good. So that's a start.
when you console log in.
All right. Now, what's going to happen is we want it to run this,
You get a link.
And compare the two, you'll notice
and this returns what's called a promise again.
hashes match up.
All right.
Super useful. But
So,
by itself,
I shouldn't say that. This returns the promise. We want to call Axios now. So Axios dot get. Now, we could have gone in and put that in there for Axios.
especially
That's the way we did it before. But since we made a variable, now we can come in here and we can just put in movie URL. All right. Now, is that much better what we just did? Just draw your own conclusions, okay? Some people have no problem doing it, we'll do it this way, and some people will do it the other way. It really doesn't matter. This does return a promise, which means it can succeed, which means it's resolved, or it can fail, which means it'll have an error. All right? So, I'm going to put a dot then in here,
Oh, you got it from the main.
and this is typically what you say in here again is response,
which is just
and we wanted to tell it response
we'll use script to hash it. We provide
dot
I have a
JSON,
lot of progress, that's why I don't want to start new course.
all right, and another dot then.
going into details.
And for now, just because we want to see whether or not this works, we're going to take the result,
Yes,
all right, so we're going to take that result, and we're going to come in here,
we have to manually put in a load of presets.
all right, and we're just going to say
Change
console.log
have to do that.
Now when we
result.
log in, we can grab the salt
Okay.
from the database and read
Now,
the original hash.
I'm going to type something.
Strings here.
You can type it in, you don't have to type it in. But remember, when you're doing this, this is assuming right now that everything succeeded. Does that make sense?
About the value.
I have to make this.
Well, what if it doesn't? Then I can also put in here a dot error, and I can tell it then what I want it to do.
Code or HMAC. The quick
The
right.
text
definition
we need
is that
is
it's
in.
And I could just say, for example, console.log
must also have the
ERR for the error.
key.
In fact, it probably is going to want that set up the same way that the other one was. I'm going to just get rid of it. I'm not even going to put anything there. I want you to investigate that,
Server can trust it.
because this is an error situation.
Hash signature.
That's how you look at it.
I guess go here.
All right?
Then we'll define a sequence.
But we're just going to assume at least that it works. Now, maybe it won't, but it should. So I'm going to do a file save right here. I'm going to go back and see if I broke anything. It looks like it doesn't like something, but it might be from what I just put in there. So let me break out of this and start it up again.
We
And
would
also
use
allow
the
them to
JavaScript
read the
if we
original
were
message.
doing.
That's where encryption comes in.
mobile
What is
to
encryption
open this
exactly?
app.
With encryption,
I don't
we take
think
a
And
it's-
message
it looks like it's okay, but we'll find
that's
out.
called the ciphertext.
Nope. It says search term is not defined. So I spelled something.
Because you changed the search term to
It might be. You're probably right.
Again, it's not because
Okay. So in where is that? In that's
here's a lot.
And the saver of the message
Normally process for like intermediate search
we're going to
you're not using movie search term.
that stands for
But there is a lot.
we'll try it. See if that fixes it. Okay.
decipher. First is the message itself. That's what we're trying to encrypt. Then we'll define the key.
Nope. It says movies is not defined on line 29. So let's go take a look.
16. This will randomize output of the so an identical sequence of text
We
will
should
never
use movie search term because that's
make it
the
more difficult for
process that we
us.
make.
I'm now
That's what we're
wondering,
changing.
like,
Now we
can
can
I
use
just
these
not
values
work?
to
We-
like a hash.
Maybe.
It's dependent
Let's try
on
that.
How should we do this?
Although
I
encryption
reckon we need
algorithms
to
I'm not even
separate
sure.
this.
But I'll take a look at my notes
you'll
during the
notice an
break.
entirely different set
Alright.
of options.
Why is it not
Now you
working?
can use the cipher to encrypt the message by calling update, or even multiple messages if you want to. Then finish it off by calling cipher final.
I actually noticed
that value to the
Some
end
of
of the
my tabs
encrypted
still
message.
being
At this point, the cipher can no
Well,
longer
that
be
one's
used to encrypt data. Now, to
Okay,
decipher
well,
it,
anyway,
create a deciphered
I reckon
object
the
with the
best
same
bet
key
I'm
and
gonna do
initial
is
vector.
screenshot.
Use the same basic pattern with update and final
Yeah, you
to
don't need a
convert the
whole
encrypted
big
message
file.
back into
Okay.
plain text. And that's
Well,
how you
not for
encrypt
what
and
we're
decrypt a
doing.
message in
No.
Node.
The world isn't run by weapons
Yep.
or energy or
This
money.
movie is not
Okay,
defined
so
on
now-
line 13, so I changed it in one place and probably not in the other.
However, there is one big
Const movie URL, yep, that'll have to
and that's
be
the fact
right here
that the
too.
sender and receiver of the message
I'm thinking of how I'm going
And
to...
I'm not going to disagree with Mr. Breeding, but I'll have to go back in and look at it during the break, because I think there's a much easier way to do it than I just did it. All right.
Instead of one key,
Yeah.
it uses two keys that are mathematically linked,
let's
a
start
public
with that.
key and a private key. As the name suggests, the private key should always be kept secret, while the public key can be shared with other people.
How do you
Think of it
feel
like a
about
mailbox.
HTML
You have a
method?
slot where anybody can have
Response.json is not a function, yeah it is.
But to get the
So
mail
let's
out,
look.
you need the private
Yeah.
key, which can only be done by the owner of the key. In Node,
Okay.
you can generate a private and public key pair
Well,
using the
this
generate key pair function.
is
The
enough
first argument
of your
is the crypto system you want to use. In our case, will be RSA. That's the most common one that you'll come across. From there, you can define a bunch of settings, like the length of
I'm
the
not
key
sure
in
if it
bits,
actually
and
is,
also the
but-
encoding for the public and private key. We'll go with the
All right,
recommended
let's take a
settings.
break. I'm going to try to
Have it
fix this
return
during the
a
break,
format
okay?
of M
It is 1:08. Let's come back, please. Let's just make it nice and long, so I'm sure I have time to fix it. Let's come back at 1:25, please.
Console log,
I
you
mean,
get values for the public and
close that.
private key.